Hello YouTube, this is Ben with Better Golf 123. I'm going to do a short video today on how to install a piston into a small block Chevy engine. We're going to put the rings on the piston and then install the piston into the block. I'm going to go pretty quick, so you can pause the video if you want to take notes, or if you're actually trying to do this at the same time. Try to keep this video under 20 minutes. So let's get started. You're going to need a couple of tools. First tool and most important one is probably this ring compressor. As you can see, the ring compressor, these cost about $10 online. You're going to also need a dead blow hammer. You're going to need a file. You're going to need a ring spreader. These probably cost less than $10 online. You're going to need a torque wrench later, but for right now, I am going to start with how you clearance your rings for the proper installation. Okay, before you install your piston rings onto your pistons, you have to what they call clearance them, or make sure they're the right size for the hole. So basically, your rings come, this set is 5 pieces. You've got your spacer for your oil rings, which go on both sides of that spacer, and you've got 2 compression rings. Okay, these 2 compression rings are the important part. They need to have a certain distance in between this gap right here after it's installed into this hole to behave properly. Basically, heat expands these things and they will start pushing together. If they don't have a big enough gap in here, you can cause some big problems. So one thing I want to mention also, while I've got the tight shot here, is, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little dot right there on top. That dot can either be a dot or a T, or it can say top, but that designates the side of the piston ring that faces up, or goes this way. Okay, so the first piston ring in this set is going to get 22 thousandths of clearance. The second one is going to get 16 thousandths, and the third and fourth also, which are the oil ring, are also going to be at 16 thousandths. Now I'm going to check this by installing this ring into the hole. So it looks a little dry, so I'm going to lube it a little bit. Now you put this into the hole. Basically, you just hold this side down under the hole, in there, and then you kind of push it and squeeze it into that hole. Now, right there at the top is not where you want to measure it. You want to get it down into that hole a little bit. So you take the piston, you put it against it. This also squares the ring up to the hole, so you can measure it properly. Push it down there a few inches. Then you take your feeler gauge. Here's your feeler gauge, and you measure that gap right there. Measure that gap. This is my 16 right here, probably, because it's really super tight, and I've got this set for 22. But I've already gapped these, so I know what they are. I'm gonna set this one aside, so I know that's the top one. This is the second one. Okay, top one, second one. These 2, and I'm going to put my oil ring on first. But now, if you had to gain some clearance in here, you're going to want to take a metal file, and you're going to want to file this off until you get 22 thousandths in here, or whatever your spec is. But you basically just file those off until you get the proper clearance. Very important that you get proper minimum clearance. If you get a little bit too much in there, is way better than not having enough. Okay, now we're going to install the rings onto the pistons. First step in this is basically putting a light coat of oil over everything. You want to make sure everything's nicely lubricated. Then you're going to put your oil spacer on there. This is just a little spacer piece for the oil rings. The oil rings are the little thin ones. These I found it can be beneficial if you do it in direction. I don't know why, but they seem to go on a lot easier. And it's even in the instructions of the rings to basically slide this ring on this direction. This is the very bottom ring, and it's going to go in between the piston and that little spacer right there. Okay, slid on there pretty easily. Okay, now while you're putting these rings on there, you might want to take into consideration that you're going to have to space these rings about 90 degrees apart from each other all the way around the piston. So get them in the ballpark while you're putting them on is always the best. That way you don't have to slide them around like I'm doing this one. So basically you can slide them back and forth. You see, there's my gap, and there's the gap for the spacer. Okay, now that one I went around this way. This one I'm going to go around this way, and this is the one that goes over the top of the ring spacer. Okay, I get it started right here, and I just basically work that around, all the way around. Now when you're bringing the edge of this oil ring over the edge of the piston, it's important that you hold it away from the edge of the piston, because if you get this sharp corner right here and drag it across there, it can scratch your piston. It's pretty nasty. I just scratched that one. Not too bad though. Okay, now those are almost spaced almost perfectly already. I got one right there, one gap right there, and I'm going to keep that on my wrist pin. Now, the compression rings, what they call the compression rings on these things, are right here. I'm going to put the one in this groove on first. Okay. There again, I look for my little dot to make sure that's facing up. I'm going to want to do these with my ring spreader. Move that open. Slip that on. One. Look for my dot. Where's my dot? There's my dot. Okay, I want that dot facing up. Put the other ring on there. Boom. Alright. Alright. All my rings are installed in my pistons. Ah. Okay, now I've got this piston ready to go into the hole. Now, before I stick it in that hole, I'm going to want to do what they call clock these piston rings. So, bottom line is these little gaps here in the pistons. You don't want those lined up with each other. Usually, this is the accepted method. Basically, is basically you want those gaps at here, 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 and here. As far as the oil ring side goes, those gaps are staying pretty consistent. These are the ones you got to worry about shuffling around as the compression rings, and just get them where they're not lined up with each other. And then I like to go ahead and place my piston in the hole. Before I do that, I'm going to put the rod bearing on there. Rod bearing actually has a little notch right here, and it's got a little notch on the actual rod also. So you just basically push that down into there. Make sure that notch lines up real good. You want to make sure that rod is all the way in there. Now, I'm going to go ahead, because I don't want to have to try to get the lube on there later. These stay on there pretty good, so I'm going to take some assembly lube. Put that on there. Okay. And let's spread it out a little bit so it doesn't drip. Usually sticks a little better if you spread it out. Okay, everything seems to be in place. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to stick that piston in there, and then I'm going to check my clock. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 for my gaps. My gaps are right here and here and there and there. Perfect. Okay. You want to make sure that the rings are kind of in there straight, because once you start pressing on with the ring compressor, it can get sideways. Now, I like to keep the ring compressor toward the top. Let's see. I like to keep the part of the ring compressor that has the 2 sheets on it toward the top, so I can keep an eye on that. And this has a little release on it. Bottom line, I get that out to make it bigger. I'll slide it over here. I'm going to make sure that it's nice and flat against the block. And then I'm going to tighten it up until I just get it a little bit snug. Then I'm going to take that piston and push it up in there a little bit so that I can get a better, hold on it. Get it more toward the center of the ring compressor so it pushes evenly, really. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to want to tighten that down pretty good. At the same time, I want to make sure it's tightening evenly all the way around. There's our last click. Okay. Now, the important part with this going in is that the ring compressor actually stay right flat against the block. You got to look all around this edge right here and make sure that ring compressor has got a really nice, it's nice and tight, and it's got a good edge all the way around the block. That's going to keep those rings from popping out between the ring compressor and the block. So now I'm going to want to tap that down. Right on in. That's how they should go in. Now, once you have it to this stage, you're going to want to, I like to flip mine up here and kind of line it up on the crank and then push it on down. And what I'm doing is, as I'm guiding the crank where the 2 bolts on the end of the rod will actually go over the top of the crank. Once I get that over it, I can spin it up. You see my rod is in position right here to butt up to the crank. I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull it on up. Okay, rod's nicely in place. I'm going to take my cap. Okay, now remember that this cap is directional, as is the piston. The piston only goes in one way. The eyebrows have to clear the rods. I'll show you that a little bit when I get on the top side. But this cap also, when it came from the machine shop, it had a little 7 on it, and this had a little 7 on it, and this is the number 7 piston. So those all should match up still. Now, there's another way to tell if you've got it in the right way, is when these caps are in here, when these bearings are in here, in the caps, it's going to have one side that's got a little bit bigger, machine surface on this side than it is on this side. There's also a little more spacing in between the bearing and the end of the cap on the side that goes against the crank. The side that has the 2 pistons together, like in other words this area or this area right here, doesn't have quite as much space in between the bearing. That's another way to tell. But these are real easy because it has a 7 here and a 7 there, and I'm just going to put those two together. Pop that cap on there. You want to put your nuts on there. Oh wait, I forgot. What did I forget? I forgot my assembly lube. I was doing so good on time too. I want to keep it under 20 minutes, but this might whack me here. Okay, as you can see, I told you it was very important. I actually had to pull that cap back off because I forgot to put the assembly lube on it. And as you can see, I put some on there now. I'm going to put the cap back on it. These nuts on there. I'm not going to tighten these up real tight. Get them on there snug. I'm going to come back and torque them later. Now, what you do is just for your purpose, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to do plastic gauge on it right now, but it's really important that you check these things with plastic gauge. That's a little spaghetti-looking material that you put in the thing. And I'll probably run another video when I'm doing the plastic gauge on this. But for right now, I'm going to torque it down fairly tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for binding. You just want to turn, that engine. Make sure it still all turns over real nice. Oh yeah, it feels good. Okay, so that's how you install a piston into a small block Chevy. Peace out.